Hello. In the Python programming course of 5th semester, we are currently discussing module 1. In the previous sessions, we talked about what are the different features of Python. Then we discussed what are the different methods to run Python programs. Then some of the basic elements like how to execute Python program in command line interface. Then one of the very important concept of Python, how to use indentation to specify block of a programming code. Then we also talked about how Python program helps, or let me say how comments are used in Python. There we talked about the single line commenting and multi-line commenting. Then we also talked about what are Python variables, how to define a Python variable. And there one very important point that we discussed was there was no declaration for the Python variables. Whenever we assign value to the variable, the data type will be defined for the variable. Then another important point that we discussed was the string variables can be declared by using single or double quotes. Then we talked about what are the different strategies that can be used to make variables more readable, because it is always recommended to have meaningful and readable variables in a program. There we can have 3 different strategies for naming the variables. Then we talked about how to assign values to more than one variable in a single statement and how to assign the same value to multiple variables in one statement. Then this slide was telling about how a list or a tuple can be extracted as the values into variable. Then the different Python data types was discussed in another session, where we talked about string data type, list data type, dictionary data type, tuple data type, number data type. So we very briefly talked about what are these data types, and some examples were also discussed. Then what are the 4 numeric data types in Python was also discussed. We have integer, float and complex. Apart from that, long integer was also one of the numeric data types used in Python. Some of the examples we discussed, and how to do the type conversion, typecasting was also discussed. So in this video, we are going to talk about Python strings and how to handle input output, etc. We know that the strings in Python are enclosed by single quotation marks or double quotation marks. These are the 2 examples you can observe. You can have string declared this way with single quotes or with double quotes. And if you want to display a string literal, we can use a print function. So suppose if you are going to assign a string to a variable a, and if you want to display the string literal, you can use print function, and the argument will be the string variable. Now when you are going to assign a string, you can assign a single line string or multi-line strings also. So if it is going to be a single line string, we will be using double quote or single quote. This is how we will be using. This is a single line string, so which will be entered with the new line character. You assign this value to a variable. This is a string variable that contains only one line string. Whereas if I want to assign multi-line strings, we can use 3 quotes, either 3 double quotes or you can use 3 single quotes. This is how we will be assigning multi-line strings. So what happens in Python, we know that the new line will be considered as the next statement, right? New line will be used for separating the statements or the instructions of a Python program. So if I am going to give a new line here, automatically right from this point it is going to consider it as a separate statement. So to avoid that, we can use multi-line strings specified with 3 single quotes or with 3 double quotes. So if I want to have 1000 is integer, then you press the enter key, then 200.002 is float, then 3 plus 2j is a complex number. Like that, if you want to give new line character here, instead of giving backslash n etc., you can assign multi-line strings this way. The only thing is it must start with 3 single quotes or it must start with 3 double quotes, and close the multi-line string with 3 single quotes or with 3 double quotes. So this is how we will be assigning single line string or a multi-line string to a variable. Now we know that strings in Python are also considered as arrays, and these are bytes of Unicode character, right? So we don't use ASCII character in Python, we are using Unicode characters in Python. Whereas in C program we use ASCII code character for the strings, but here we are using Unicode characters. And Python, one very important point that we have to understand here, Python does not have a character data type. It is not having a character data type. Whereas in C and C++, in C and C++, we do have a data type called as char data type. CHAR. Please recollect. CHAR is a character data type, but character data type is not available in string. So if you want to have a single character, you need to declare the single character as a string with length of 1. So this point all of you must observe closely. Python does not have a character data type. If you want to have a single character, you need to use it or declare it as a string with length of 1. And suppose, say for example, if you want to get the first character of a string, obviously we will use indices for the string, because string is considered to be array of characters. So each character can be retrieved by using the string index, right? So because it is an array of characters. Suppose, say for example, I am going to assign hello world as a string to variable x. So x is a string data type now. So if I want to get the first character of hello world, I can give x of 0. So you know that a square bracket is used for an array. 0 is the index. So always the arrays will start with index 0. It is similar to C, C++ and Java, and it displays the character H here. Suppose if you want to get the third character, L, then you can give x of 2, that will display the character L, which is the third character. So the first character will be represented with index 0, second character will be represented with index 1, and the third character will be represented with index 2, and so on. Okay. So this is how you will get the characters from the string. Now suppose, say for example, you want to display character by character. Then I can use a statement called as for in statement. And you just assign this string to variable x, and you use for x in x. So x is now collection of characters which is represented as a string variable. So this can be a list, tuple, whatever it is, right? So you can have a collection here, and this is going to be the variable which will be retrieving the value. And this was also discussed in another session, how to use foreign statement to collect each and every value from a collection variable. So X is here a string which is a collection variable that contains collection of characters. Suppose if you are going to use list here, list is again collection of different data types. Tuple is another collection of values. So whatever collection you have, the collection will contain different elements, and these elements can be retrieved using for in statement. Now, whenever you are going to retrieve each and every value, obviously you need a variable to store that particular value, for which we are using this X. So, for X in X will retrieve, for is obviously a for loop. So, in each iteration, the small x will get a value from the string. So, in the first iteration, H will be assigned to small x. Then in the second iteration, E will be assigned to small x, and in the third iteration, L will be assigned to small x. And obviously you can understand here I gave an indentation and I use the print statement. So this is how for loop will be used. Now suppose if you want to get the length of the string, I can use the length function. So you can simply use length of the string variable. It will be displaying the length as 13 because I have 13 different characters, and the blank space will also be considered as one of the characters. So totally I have 13 characters in the string. So the result will be 13. This is how we will get the length of a string. So this is just a brief idea about what are Python strings. Next, let us talk about the input-output, operators and branching. Let us see how input can be done in Python program, or how to read data from the user. So Python allows the user to input or read data. It will ask the user to enter some input, and it is different in Python 3.6 and Python 2.7 version. So for our lab sessions we were using Python 3.6 because Spider 3 is the IDE we are using in our lab session. So Spider 3 is using Python 3.6 version, right? But if you are using Python 2.7 version, it is using raw input as the method to read the data from the user. If you are using 3.6 as the version, right from 3 version onwards, we are using input as the method for reading the data. And in our sample programs, we had seen some of the examples of how to read the data by using input method. So we will be using only input method for our lab sessions, not raw input. It is used only in the 2.7 version. So if it is 2.7 version, this is how you will be reading the data. You can just have a variable here on the left hand side, then equal to, you give the method raw input, and this is going to be the prompt. This is going to be the prompt for reading the data. So when you run the statement, it will say enter your first name, and the cursor will be blinking. You can enter the data. Once you have entered the data will be assigned to the variable called fname. So if you are going to print it, you can say hello, and whatever first name has been entered, that will be displayed here. Then good morning can be given as a greeting wishes. So these two statements will display hello Sumi, good morning, if the user enters Sumi as the data for fname. Okay. Now the same, if you are going to do it in Python 3.6, it is going to use input method. Again, this is the prompt will be given, displayed to the user, and it will say just enter your first name. There you can enter the data, and that data will be assigned to the variable fname. Then similar to the 2.7 version, you can use print hello, then F name, good morning. Right? This is how we use the raw input and the input methods of two different versions, 2.7 and 3.6. Now, apart from that, so in the earlier example, if you have observed, both raw input and input is having a string assets argument, and this string is the prompt that is given to the user when you execute the program, right, which will be used for reading the data. Now suppose, say for example, if you are not giving any argument here, right, so this is how you might have practiced in your C programming using printf and scanf. So before you give the scanf function, you might have given a printf function to display some kind of prompt to the user. So what you do here, you can have the print function. You can say please enter an integer value. Then you say x is equal to input. Then I don't give any argument here. No string argument is given. So input function will not give any prompting. It will be waiting for the user to enter the data. Whereas the previous print statement will give you a prompting. So this is one way of having prompt for reading the data. So you can say please enter another integer value. Then y is equal to input. So here also you can observe I don't give any argument. And one very important point that you have to observe here, the input method, raw input method and raw input method will always read the data in a string format. Please note, the input or the raw input methods will read the data from the user as a string data type. So obviously, even though you are going to enter your value like 1 to 12, the 12 will be assigned as a string to variable x. The same way, if you are going to enter the second value as 35, 35, this 35 will be assigned as a string to variable y. So now x and y are going to have only string data type. Even though you are going to type 1, 2, 3, 5, etc. numbers, those numbers will also be considered as a character. And the character collection will be stored as a string value in variable x and y. So if you want to take the integer of this string value, obviously you need to use the type conversion. So you use the int method. So int of x and int of y will give you the integer value of the string which is assigned to variable x and y, right? So the input function will be assigning value x, and input function here again will assign a string to y. I think we can see that in our spider. So let it get loaded. By the time we will discuss this program, right? So this is a very simple program. Yeah, spider is opening up. Yeah, I got the spider here. Okay, so let me take a new program, right? So this is a new program. Let me copy this code. This is what we are going to test now. I copy this code here. You can observe the program, and I am going to run this program. If you want, let me go to the full screen mode. Yeah, I am going to run this program. Okay, so it is asking me to save the program. I save it. Yeah. Now it has started executing the program. It is asking me please enter an integer value. I give 12, then press the enter key. Then it will say please enter another integer value. I say 35. I press the enter key, and I get 12 plus 35 is equal to 47 because I have this print statement, right? Now suppose if you are not converting it into integer, if you are not converting it into integer, let us have a print statement. Okay, so instead of num1 I am going to give x, and instead of num2 here I give y directly. I am not converting it here. Let us see what is the result we are getting. Okay, so let us clear the console and I am going to execute the program. It is asking me please enter the first value. Let me say 25. Press the enter key. I enter the second value 37, and you can observe here for the first print statement. For this print statement, it is taking 25, 37. When it is adding it, it is concatenating. It is not taking it as an integer value, because the 25 stored in x and 37 stored in y will be considered as a string, because input method will return only a string which is read from the user. Okay, so this is what happens here. It becomes 25, 37, right, when I say x plus 1. Whereas here what I have done, the string value which I read from the user 25 and 37 was converted into integer. Then I store it in variable num1 and num2. Then I am going to have the result as 62, right? So this is what you have to observe in the Python program, which is very, very important. We can, when you use your input or raw input method, it is going to return only a string, and if you want to retrieve integer or float value from the string, you have to use the typecasting, right? We have already discussed how to do the type conversion from float to integer, integer to float, string to integer. All those things we had discussed in our previous session. Okay, great. Fine. Now let us see how to do the output. Now Python allows the user to output data using print function, and apart from print function we can use format function also to give a format string for the print function. Please recollect the points that you have used in your printf function of C. In printf function of C, what we do, printf, open the parenthesis, then you give something in double quotes, then comma, then whatever variables you want to display, right? Now whatever you give in double quotes of the printf function is called as a format specification of the printf function. Format specification of the printf function. Okay. Now that format specification we cannot give directly in the print method. Instead we can use the format function. We can of course give it in the print statement. Just the strings and the concatenation can be given in the print statement or in the print function, whereas the formatting cannot be done using print function. So we can use the format function for specifying the format string for the print method, right? So the print method allows you to display the content, whereas the format method allows you to format selected parts of a string. How it is doing the selector formatting? By adding placeholders, right? We'll be discussing what you mean by placeholder. The placeholder will be using curly brackets, something like this, and in the text we can specify the values through format method. Let us see an example, then it will be more clear for you, right? So this is a example for print function. This example we had already discussed for the input method. We just use the print function. You give all the strings and combine the variables which you want to display. Now suppose, say for example, you want to use the formatting, then you can observe here, I read the first name, I read the age, then I am using a text here which is again a string, and I am going to give the formatting like this. You can observe I am using curly braces here. So this is what you call as the placeholder, right? We can have a format string where we can specify some placeholder, and you can observe here I am using a placeholder here. So that means I need some value to be displayed here. Then I give another string good morning. You are another placeholder. So this placeholder will get some value from the print function. Then I give another string. So these are string literals. These are the string literals for formatting, whereas the curly braces specify the placeholder for specifying some values in the print function. Okay, so this is how I am going to use the print function. I use a print function, and in the print function, instead of giving it directly in the print function, what I do, I use the format method, and for the format method I specify the string. So this string dot format will take two arguments. Why it is taking two arguments? Because I am having two placeholders here. I am having two placeholders. So for the first placeholder, it will take the value of f name. For the second placeholder, it will take the value of age. Okay, so if the user enters Sumi and 15 for the first name and age, it will be displaying like hello Sumi, good morning, you are 15 years old, right? So F name contains a value of Sumi, age contains a value of 15. So Sumi will be given for this first placeholder, 15 will be given for the second placeholder. If you want, let us try this in our spider. Only one single quotes. All of you know that for string, single line string, we are going to have only one single quote or double quotes. Okay, so you can observe this is the comment line. This is the comment line. Unexpected end. And if you want to have it as multi-line, what we do, we can give 3 double quotes, then just press the enter key. And again 3 single quotes. 3 single quotes and 3 double quotes. So what happens now? Yeah, here I am using a quote, so delete that quote also. Yeah, these quotes should also be deleted. Yeah, now it's fine. Three single quotes and 3 single quotes. Yeah, why it is giving invalid syntax? Let us try double quotes then. Yeah, now it is again showing invalid syntax. Okay, then good morning. I close the double quotes. Yeah, now it's fine. Yes, sorry. So it's having some kind of characters there, and I close this. Okay, so one closing parenthesis was missing. Now I will have my, so this is my comment line, right? So I will have this comment line here. I'm going to close it with 3 double quotes. Okay, now it's fine. Okay. Yes. So the error was because I was not having a closing parenthesis here. The error was not here. Actually, the error was in line number 21, but it was showing invalid syntax in line number 22. So you have to observe always whenever you get an error. So whether it is in the previous line or in the next line should also be identified. Okay. Now let us try, let me comment this also. We can have single quotes for multi-line commenting. Yes, please recollect. Okay. So this example we are seeing just to understand how the format function can be used. You can observe I am having an input function which reads a first name, another input function which reads the age of the person. Then I am having a string. I am having a string declared this way which can be used for formatting. So I need the output in this particular format, right? I need the output in this particular format. So I give hello, then the placeholder, which is represented as a curly braces. Then these are all string literals. Again another placeholder. These are all string literals. So in the string literal, wherever I have the curly braces, these curly braces will search for a particular value from a variable which is given as an argument of the format function. So this is how we give the argument here. So you give text, then text dot format, open the parenthesis, fname comma age. So fname goes to the first curly parenthesis and age goes to the second curly brace. So let us try running this program. I run this program. So it asks me to enter the first name. So let us enter Sumi. Then enter the age. I enter 15. Now it says, hello Sumi, good morning. You are 15 years old. If I run it again and if I give some other value like Sri Lakshmi, then 20, then it will say hello Sri Lakshmi, good morning, you are 20 years old, right? So this Sri Lakshmi is the value going to fname and 20 is the value going to age. So these values will be taken in the placeholders. So this is how. So if you are asked to display some content in your program, what you can do, you can just format it. How do you want the result to be displayed? That result format can be given in a string. Then that string can invoke the format method, right? The string is now invoking the format method. So by the time you can easily understand this string is an object, and for this object you have a method called format where you can pass the variables as argument, and whatever variable you are going to pass here, that value will be taken in the placeholder. And it need not be a variable also. Say for example, I am going to use print txt dot format. So format is automatically coming, and I am going to give a name here, then I am going to give 35, right? So let us try running this program again. So it is asking me some name to be entered. I enter the age also, and you can observe here I am not using variable, right? I am directly giving the value also. So if you want to have values directly to be given in the format function, that is also possible. So it need not be always a variable. You can give values also, and you can have different values. This is a string value, this is an integer value. So both will be accepted by the format function. Okay, so this is how format function and the print function can be used for displaying the output. Okay, so this is another way of representing the format function. You can observe here. See, in the previous example, I have not given any representation inside the curly braces. Inside the curly braces, it's blank, right? Now, you can observe this example. I am assigning value 23 to age, and I am assigning name Sai to variable name, and I am declaring a string here, right? Let me call it as a format string. I am having his name is, and inside the curly braces, if you observe, I give value 1, again curly braces with value 1, is another curly braces with value 0, years old. So you know that these curly braces are the placeholders, and inside these placeholders I specify some index to inform them that 0 indicates the first variable I give in the format function, 1 indicates the second variable I give in the format function. So in the format function, if you want to specify the variables, you can give the variables in any order. Here the variables can be given in any order, but whichever variable you are using, whatever format you want, the corresponding index is to be specified in the right order for the string variable. So here, if you are going to simply give the placeholders, for the first placeholder, whatever is the first variable, that will be considered. For the second placeholder, whatever is the second variable, that will be considered. Whereas here, if you don't want to give it in the proper order, you can have the index to specify how it is to be done. So obviously, if I give index 1, the first value will be taking index 0, second value will be taking index 1. So index 1 will be taking the value of variable called name, and here again I am specifying index, so the value will be taken here, and here it is index 0, so this value will be taken here. So this is the point to be noted. If you want, let us have this program also to be executed in our Spider. Okay, right, I'm going to, yes, okay, so let us clear the console. Let me execute the program. Yeah, so this is the previous program that is being executed, 20. Okay, and you can observe here, his name is Sai. Sai is 23 years old. So here it is taking the value of name. Here it is taking the value of name. So you can observe here I am using the index of the arguments that are passed to the format function. These are the indices of arguments that are passed to the format function. So the first argument will have the index 0, second argument will have the index 1, and so on, right? But suppose, say for example, you want to give again you want to say hello Sai, you want to give here, right? You can just run the program. You can observe, right? So this is the value I gave for the previous program. Okay, you can see here hello Sai is used. Suppose if the same is used without the index of the placeholders, right? If I'm going to remove all the indices of the placeholders, you can observe how it is going to give you the result. I'm going to run the clear the console, run the program again. So this is the previous part of the program. Let us ignore this. Okay, it is giving me the error. Why? Because I have 4 different placeholders, but I'm having only 2 values given. If you are going to give some third value and fourth value, now let us see what happens. So this is again the previous code. Observe here, for the third placeholder it has taken SSS, and for the fourth placeholder it has taken 57. Whereas in the previous case I have four different placeholders, but I am giving only two values because I am using indices here, so it was not giving any error. So if I am going to have four placeholders without indices, then for all the four placeholders you have to give the value. Otherwise, when you execute the program, so here I am having four placeholders, but it is having only two values. So obviously when I execute the program, it is going to show you the error. So just observe what is the error it is giving. It says tuple index out of range. It says tuple index out of range. Why? Because it is considered as a tuple, right? So there are four values here. So obviously four values must also be there in the format function, but it is not having four values. Instead it is having only two values. So it is out of index range. Okay, so this point all of you must observe when you are using the format function. Okay, so let us stop here. The input, output and Python string we have discussed in this video. In the next video we will be talking about what are the different operators in Python and how it is handled in the Python program. Okay, see you in the next video. Thank you.